All right, hello once again. This is Jeff Scott as part of my Jeff Teaches Programming C#, which is part of my YouTube channel at JPS-Jeff Teaches Programming. In the last video, what I did was I wrote the first iteration of the BMI app that we're going to be using. All right, and let's see. We don't need this. And we don't need that anymore. All right, so the reason I decided to make another video on this was to explain this in a little more depth and breadth of coverage. Okay, one thing I didn't do, and it worked, but I'm not sure why, but I want to say here, txt height.select. And that should make sure that when the program starts to run, that my cursor is there. Now, it seemed to work anyway, but I'm not sure why it did. Okay, never hurts to be sure. All right, so come in here. I'm going to go a little comment crazy here, but say set focus to txt height text box. That's how the program's going to start. All right, we went over and we talked about this. I think I've done a decent job, at least. I'm not saying a great job, but at least a decent job, or hopefully a decent job, of going over the constants and what they are. Okay, I put comments by most of them. The only ones I didn't add comments to were these here, because I thought they were just pretty self-evident. Again, you may or may not agree with that. It's fine. So, again, this is the code that executes when calculate button clicked. We'll go over that last. This is the code that executes when the clear button is clicked. And this, of course, is the code that executes when the exit button is clicked. Now, we've gone over this before, but again, let's run the program so we can look at this exit code in here. So let's run the program. And I'm going to move this out of the way. I want it center screen, but just for now. All right, so when you click exit, what should happen is a dialog box should pop up that says, are you sure you want to exit the program? And the title should be exit program. There should be a yes button and a no button, and the icon should be an I because it's an informational icon. So again, there is the text, there's the heading, there are the buttons, and there is the icon. And if you say yes to that, the program should exit. Now, I could have just said application.exit, but that's really severe because if the user accidentally clicked the button and didn't mean to, all right, now they're kind of stuck. All right. Now, I don't know either, going back here, when we put in these buttons, let's see, the accept button is not set, so we'll set that to btn calculate, and our cancel button we will set to btn clear, as I have been doing. All right, so now when I run the program and I come in and put in a number, so 74, 111, and I'll hit enter, and I can hit escape to run the calculate and clear buttons. Okay. Now, when we clear, we want to do 5 things. We want to clear out our txt height text box, clear out our txt weight text box, clear out our LBL BMI, or our body mass index, and clear out our BMI, or body mass index status. Finally, we want to go and set the focus back to height. So let's see how we do that. Pretty easy. And again, you can, for all of these here, you can say string.empty. And some people consider that to be cleaner than doing double quote, double quote. I just like double quote because it's less typing. So again, we are clearing out the height text box, clearing out the weight text box, clearing out the BMI label, clearing out the BMI status label, and then resetting the height or the cursor back to the height. Again, hopefully that makes sense. Finally, when we click we have these constants which we talked about already, but finally when we click calculate. Now, for each one of these, there's 3 checks we have to make. We have to check to see if it's empty, we have to check to see if it's numeric, and we have to check to see if it's within range. All right? The only one that's different is the range check, because the range for height is, we'll put that in here, remember that is 12 to 96, so that's it in inches. You can do BMI if you're doing this in a European, you can use like kilograms, etc. But I didn't do that, so. Okay. So we assume that it's okay to take whatever's in the height text box and assign it to height string. Whatever's in the weight text box, assign it to weight string. So in other words, that's assigning whatever we put in here to height string and whatever we put in there to weight string. All right, so that's the first thing. Then we have to check for each one of them, but we do them one at a time with our checks. We check to see if that height string is empty. So if it's an empty height, we put in an error message, we set the focus to the height, and we return. So no value entered for height, height text box empty, with just an OK button, and it's an error. So we set the focus back to the height, and we return. All right, we do a similar thing for the weight, and we'll look at that in a moment. Then we check for non-numeric. So we come in here and we say, the result is try to parse that, what we put into that height string, which again, if we didn't use that, that's really this. That's just an alias, so to speak, for txt height.text. So that's saying, attempt to take the height string and parse it into an integer. If you can, put the output into height. If it doesn't work, that means your conversion failed, so the non-numeric value was inputted for height. You display an error message, that's it right there. You must enter a number, non-numeric height entered, okay? And again, that is really an error, so we can come in here like we did before and say, for the buttons, .ok, and for the icon, since that is an error, we can say .error. All right, before we didn't have any, this wasn't set, so I'm going to set it now. That's just, why? Because I think that's just a good idea to do. All right. We didn't do it here either. So now we've got that in there. This is a range check. We want to make sure that the height is, if the height we entered is less than 12 or greater than 96, we now display you must enter a height between 12 and 96, out of range height inputted, with an OK button and an error. We have to clear out what was in there. We clear it out there and we clear it out here because there's garbage in there. And then we set the focus. So if we get down to the point where we're checking for the weight, we had a valid height. We entered a number and that number was between 12 and 96. So now we make similar checks for the weight. If it's empty, we put in there no value is entered for the weight. Okay, again, I'm going to grab this, as I just did before. All right, we set the focus. There's nothing to remove, so we don't have to reset it to double quote, double quote. Here again, we attempt again to take what was in that weight string, and weight string again is just an alias for txt weight.text. So we attempt to take that, and we checked for nothing in there. We checked for non-numeric in there. All right. And now we have to check for it being out of range. And if it is out of range, which is here, so if it is out of range, so if it's less than 1 or it's greater than 777, you must enter a weight within that range, out of range weight, OK button, error icon. We remove the garbage that's in txt weight into the text field. We set the focus and we return. If we get down to here, whoops, valid height and valid weight inputted. So we can calculate the BMI. Okay. And then we can display it. We could display it at the end too. It doesn't matter. But I just decided to display it there so I could check it. And we format it to 2 decimal places. Okay. Then we come in and we check the status. If it's less than 18.5, remember. So we can come in here and say BMI less than 18.5. And if it's there, we've got a BMI greater than or equal to 18.5, and, that's how you do an and here, and less than 25.0. All right, that'll be my optimal check. This will end up being our overweight check, so that's greater than or equal to 25.0, but it's less than 30. And finally, this is a BMI that's greater than or equal to 30. Okay, so we figure that out. So now we're displaying our status. Okay, I don't think we need comments here. I think we've kind of discussed everything. You may or may not have noticed, for example here, it's nice when you can write a routine and that routine will all fit on one page. Well, this calculate starts on line 60 and it goes all the way to .198, so it's 138 lines. Now, of course, I could make it unbelievably small, but that would be stupid. All right. So we'll learn later how to create functions. They're not hard. And I'm going to keep building on this program right here. All right. So I'm going to do a file, save all here, see where we are for time. See, we're only 13 minutes in. I guess I could have just concluded this in the previous lecture, but I kind of like doing it this way. All right. The one thing I should add is I am going to go and I have I will put all this code out on the system. Okay, and I'll make it available for everybody. I've got my GitHub account, etc., and I'll put that out there. I haven't created it yet, but I will. Okay, and that's about it. Now, when I come back again, what I'm going to do next is I want to talk about these different kinds of numeric values and what their ranges, etc., are, and then we'll go on from there. Thanks.